So, without further ado, your state representative then, Ramos.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Ramos, and I am the state representative for Ohio's 56th District. And I'm here to talk to you about my president, about our president, who's fighting to make our country and our community a better place. Now, when Rico asked me to speak, I asked him, about what? What do you want me to speak about? And he said, well, go up there and tell everybody why you're supporting President Obama. And I thought to myself, well, you know, how do I explain that? And the simplest answer, the thing that came to my mind is the thing that I believe is the most true. He's doing a good job. Our president, President Obama, is doing a truly good job. We've had the first true movement in healthcare reform in 75 years. That's good for America, but that's also good for Lorain County. Now, I don't know how many know this, but I used to be a caseworker down at Job and Family Services. See a few of my old co-workers here. And I dealt with families and individuals who needed health care. And back then, you know, Medicaid would turn down thousands of people a year because of certain guidelines and didn't happen to have dependent children. I heard time and time again, why can't I get covered? I'm doing my best, I work, I got as good a job as I can get in this economy. Why can't I get covered? But now, you know, I paid for the system, I did my part, but now our president, with his plan, we are finally on our way to having true coverage for every man, woman, and child in this country. That is so important. President Obama has made our nation stronger and more secure. He got rid of Osama bin Laden and has gotten us out of Iraq. That is good for America, and that is good for Lorain County. President Obama is, put simply, the reason why we still have an auto industry in this country. Statistics say 1 in 8 jobs in Ohio, 1 in 8 in the whole state are tied to the auto industry. And everyone in here knows that a lot of them 1 in 8 are right here in Lorain County, right here in northern Ohio. That's good. Good for America, good for our county. President Obama has invested in the manufacturing sector, bringing jobs back home, manufacturing jobs back home. You know, when I'm down in Columbus, we've added 44,700 manufacturing jobs in Ohio since President Obama took office. When I'm down in the State House and I talk to people and they say, you know, hi, how you doing, Representative? Or, how you doing, Dan? What's going on in Lorain? How are things back home? And I say, we're making steel again. Blast furnace is getting turned on, and I swear to God, I want to cry when I say it. Because that blast furnace is killing all over. But in addition to the traditional manufacturing base, President Obama is concentrating on renewable energy. Because of that, we have projects and factories in place in Oberlin and in North Ridgeville on both wind and solar. That's good for America, and that's good for Lorain County too. But beyond that, and beyond the individual projects, and there's so many that he's accomplished already, President Obama is the defender of the middle class, who we are and our way of life. And I can tell you as your state representative, I can tell you what these conservatives would like to do, what they want to do, and we've seen evidence of it all over the country. The anti-local control movement in Michigan, the anti-immigrant movement in Arizona, the purging of the voter rolls in Florida, voter ID bills all over the country. It's a concentrated effort by conservatives, and the reason they're doing it in the state legislatures all over this country is because they know the strength and resolve of our president, and they know that he won't let stuff, I wrote stuff, like that happen at the federal level. That's not what I wrote, but I changed it. As long as he's in the White House. And the biggest example of that's the one that we all know so well, the anti-labor movement here in Ohio and the same in Wisconsin. The best example was Senate Bill 5 that Tony had mentioned, that Ted had mentioned. You know, now a lot of you know I was on that committee. I was part of that fight while it was in the State House and then afterward. And I had so many conversations with so many of you in this room, people all over the county and all over the state. What's going on with Senate Bill 5? Are we going to be able to stop it? Are we going to have to take it to the ballot? What do we need to do to finish that? I've had that conversation with so many of you. And I've had that conversation with our team in Washington, too. I remember having the same conversation with our great Senator Sherrod Brown when he learned that I was on that committee. He said, well, Danny, what are we going to do about this? What's happening with this? How can we stop this? I was in the White House, met President Obama, learned I was from Ohio, learned that I was on that committee. He asked, what's going on with Senate Bill 5? How do we make sure that doesn't become law? He's paying attention because he knows that they're trying it in the states because they can't get through him in the White House. So we need to keep it there. Now we know the dozens of examples of how the president is fighting for us. So what can we do for him? How can we get his back? Now I'm proud to be a state rep, and a lot of people know some of how I got there, what I did before that and everything. And besides being a staffer in the State House for our former rep, Joe before he got term limited and learning the trade, as it were, on how to best fight for Lorain County and Columbus. I also spent the last decade working on political races, helping out progressive candidates here in Lorain County and across our state. Now, as a public servant, as a policymaker, I generally don't talk about politics, nuts and bolts of politics. I want to talk about policy because that's what you all hired me to do. But let me break it down as someone who spent a decade also keeping food in their stomach by working on races for Democrats. And I'm going to tell you something. The only thing that wins votes, that you can be assured will win votes, 100% of the time will win you votes, is talking to people one-on-one. I've knocked on over 10,000 doors if I've knocked on any. I've knocked for Strickland and I've knocked for Gore. I've knocked for Lundy and Morano. I've knocked for Kerry, Kajura, Captor, Kalo, and Kikusa. And I'm going to knock for Obama, just like every one of you. Because it's not the team that has the most money or the most commercials or the most yard signs. We know Mr. Romney and his billion-dollar buddies can buy a whole bunch of that. And those things can help. And our team's going to help with those things too. But what makes you win, what I've seen time and time and time again, what gets that message out across is and what actually mobilizes people to not just support the president, but actually go out there and vote for the president, is that phone call, is that knock on the door, especially from someone that you know, someone that they know, or someone who knows someone that they know, a neighbor or a friend of a friend. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, I've said to people, well, I live around the block. It gives you a little bit of credibility. Oh, Miss Johnson, you're Miss Johnson, so you have the names of the people. Well, then maybe you know Susie Johnson, who went to high school with me, or Johnny Johnson, who goes to my church. People want to know what their neighbors think. People trust their neighbors. And that's what we all are to each other, and that's what we can talk to our neighbors here. We need two things to win this election, just like any election. We need a good candidate at the top, and we know we got that. The other thing we need is what we got in the room today. A team of inspired citizens willing to put the energy and the hours to join thousands of people in hundreds and thousands of offices across the state and across this country in what I genuinely believe will be the biggest grassroots movement this country has ever seen, who will see this thing through every step of the way, every phone call and every doorstep until November 6th when we lock the president in for another 4 years to keep fighting for each and every one of us and our families.